Welcome back to Occupy the Media. To join the conversation, call us at 877-575-FSTV. Two congressmen think it's time for Wall Street to share the wealth with the 99%. And earlier we talked about how imposing a small tax on each transaction, each financial transaction made down in the Valley of the Bull could raise billions of dollars for America. But what do you think about taxing Wall Street? The lines are open. So this is our media segment. We want to talk about how the corporate media is covering issues that impact the 99%. And joining us live via Skype is Tim Carr. He's the Senior Director of Strategy at freepress.net. Thanks for being here, Tim.
Hi, how is everybody?
And we're doing pretty good. You've become a regular on the show to help us sort out all the craziness that happens there in the mainstream media. And so do you remember Joe the plumber, but do you know about Joe the printer? Our independent media partners at Alternet recently covered a story about how the mainstream media has been recycling the same individual that is being propped up as a small business owner. So Tim Carr, tell us about Joe the printer.
Well, yes, Joe the printer. He's the latest Joe on the scene. He is allegedly the owner of a small business in suburban New Jersey called Perfect Printing, who has come on the air on several occasions. He's come on NPR, he's come on NBC, he's come on Fox Business News to comment from the perspective of a small business owner about the healthcare plan and the healthcare reform. And he, of course, comes on and he's very critical of Obamacare and says it will have a very powerful negative impact on his business. But some have done some digging and lo and behold found out that, in fact, Joe the printer is affiliated with an organization called the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is also affiliated with ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council.
Okay, ALEC. And so on that note, let's watch some of the clips now of Joe Alivio sounding off about the recent healthcare decision.
We've seen the increased regulation with healthcare. We don't know where it stands, where it's going to lead to. It was supposed to help small businesses, but it's so narrowly targeted, it's not going to be of any help to my company. And the huge tax bill that's sitting out there that, it's profits in my business that I could be plowing back, purchasing new equipment, helping my employees. There's the fear that that's just going to raise that tax bill.
Well, I'm going to do all that I can avoid doing it because the cost of the mandates and the unknown costs are so potentially cost prohibitive. From a small business owner's point of view, when I take a loan and expand my business, I put my whole personal assets on the line. I can't afford to be wrong.
That we're ready to expand, and at this point what I'll do is either hold off or I may hire part-time employees. And
Okay, and that was Joe Alivio appearing on several different news outlets as a small business owner. And so Tim Carr, this small business owner printer, Joe Alivio, I mean, he must have one heck of a press secretary to be getting on so many different cable news shows. But as you mentioned before, tell us who's really behind it.
Well, as I mentioned, he's affiliated with the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which is closely affiliated in supporting of the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is an organization that you've probably talked about on your show previously, that represents corporate interests to state legislatures, where they pass a number of conservative bills around the country on voter disenfranchisement, on stand your ground stuff. But they also pass legislation that supports business as a very free market account, and they've been very outspoken against healthcare reform. So I think it's easy to be critical of Joe the printer in this case, but I think we should also look at the role the media plays here in not fully vetting their guests. I think really this is more a failure of business than a failure of the media than it is of the businesses and the right-wing interests behind Joe the printer. Every advocacy organization has a press plan that involves putting your best spokespeople out there. It's the job of the media to vet them and find if there are these sort of conflicts of interest and to expose them and to do a better job of finding
let me bring to this table,
voices.
Marcie. I mean, is this such a big deal? As Tim said, there are special interest groups. They're always putting up people to act as their spokesperson or try to get their message out. What is so bad about Joe the Printer appearing on so many different outlets?
I think the bad part is that you, as a reader or as a consumer of media, you go to it and you look and you expect that reporters would have done their due diligence, and that, you know, when you're reading about Joe Alivio and his plight and trying to make sure all of his employees have health care or don't, and how that'll affect him, you expect to make sure that he is an everyday Joe, not, no pun intended. And when you have the same guy who has an agenda, basically, it kind of taints
And that
it.
not even being disclosed, so the viewer
That's the
can't
worst
even
part.
decide that. So we do have a caller, but Jonny 5, what's your take?
Well, I think, you know, there's a little bit of nuance missing from the conversation. He is a printer, and I think it wasn't that he went on all these shows. I think he made copies of himself, and they went on all the shows.
You know, see, now that is finally making sense. There's multiple Joe the
There's
Printers.
some nuance.
But like with each copy, each one gets
Right.
has less resolution.
In all seriousness, it seems like this is a conversation, you know, healthcare is so important that you need the full spectrum of the actual nuance of the community of small business owners to be represented. You don't need one person with an agenda.
There you go.
That's a good point.
Okay, well, we do have a caller on the line. Mark from Occupy Seattle. You're on Occupy the Media. Sounds like you want to talk more about taxing. Hi, Mark. Are you there?
Hey, yes. I really want to support the Robin Hood tax idea, but I also have to say that what we need is really a declaration of independence from Wall Street, because the whole way that the media is being controlled by the corporations is a great example of that is the story of the UN envoys writing a letter to U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton condemning the police crackdowns on the Occupy movement and the Occupy camps in the United States. Well, that, if you look around the corporate media in the United States, is not getting any coverage. And you can see why. It's because a lot of the major corporate outlets, news agencies, are funded by Wall Street interests. And I think until we get the money out of our media, as well as out of our electoral system and out of our government, we're always going to have these issues. That's why I'm supporting this idea of a declaration of independence from Wall Street that just dissolves the political relationship between our government and Wall Street right now. We've got to get to that point at some place during this movement, and hopefully soon. Thank you.
All right, great. Mark from Occupy Seattle, thanks a lot for your call. Tim Carr, let me throw that out to you. You can't get fair coverage of things like Occupy Wall Street until you get the money out of media. That's what Mark was saying.
Well, I mean, we do have a commercial media system in the country, which leads to those types of conflicts of interest, where they may not want to cover issues that affect some of the corporations that might advertise on them or partners with them. But we also are supposed to have a non-commercial media system here in the United States. It's terribly underfunded, but I think we need to think of the idea of having a non-commercial media system that could serve as an antidote to the kind of coverage that commercial media often does. And right now, we as Americans spend only about $1.45 per capita to support NPR, PBS, other public media out there, and it's a very small contribution. And if we increase that a little bit more, say just to $5 a year per person, we could have a non-commercial media system in the ways the caller envisioned that would really truly act as an antidote to the kind of.
So before we go, let me get you in there, Jonny.
Sure,
You're an advocate for people creating their own media.
And I think what's exciting is we are the media right now. You know, Mark just broadcast that story out to everyone who's listening here. This affirmation from kind of the global community saying, look, we're watching what's happening in the United States, and we affirm the value of Occupy Wall Street. So let's not deny the media that's already taking place right here.
Okay, Tim Carr, what's your last final take on Joe the Printer? Will we be seeing more copies of him throughout this election cycle?
I think there are dozens of Joe the Printers out there, and this is only one instance where they've been exposed. This is a fairly common practice of the PR industry, representing corporate interests out there. It's just Joe the Printer that's been outed this week.
All right, great. So Timothy Carr at freepress.net, thanks a lot for coming on and helping us sort out the media landscape.
My pleasure.
Okay, so we're going to take another quick break. When we return, we want to hear from our viewers. To join the conversation, call us at 877-575-FSTV, post a comment on our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter. Have you seen one of Joe Olivio's television interviews or encountered another 99% talking head? Give us a call and stay with us.